Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook, and this evening, I'm very, very excited about this evening's show. We're going to be talking about something that I think is very important. And actually, I'm going to ask you folks a question out there. Do any of you, or either yourselves or have someone that you know that's been interested in starting some kind of a business? Maybe you had a hobby that's made a little bit of money or something like that, and you thought, gee, if only I could get a little bit of backing, I could make a business out of this thing. Keep that thought, because we're going to be discussing that this evening in our conversations here at Reference Point. Because joining me tonight from TMC Working Solutions is Sandy Mackovich. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Sandy Mackovich, who is the Director of Outreach there at TMC. And Sandy, thank you so much for coming all the way down from San Francisco to join me here on Reference Point.
Thank you for having me. We're very honored to have this opportunity to share our program.
What you're doing, I think, is very exciting. And what I think we might want to start out with is giving folks in the viewing audience a little bit of an idea of who Working Solutions is. Because your organization has been around for a while. You're what's referred to as a nonprofit micro-lender. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct, yeah. So we are a nonprofit. We're considered in the financial, sort of industry as an alternative lender.
Right.
And we exist to serve the underserved community, and what we mean by that are businesses that cannot get access to capital through a traditional resource, such as a bank or a credit union.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm. And the reasons they wouldn't be able to do that are things like what?
Time in business is a big one if they're a new business or a startup. Also, sometimes they just need a small amount of money, which is what we lend. And banks tend to want them to have larger amounts, that they want to borrow larger amounts.
Right, and I think a lot of times in the banking world, they're looking for something like, if you've been in business for 2 to 3 years, I think 3 years has become the norm these days.
Yes.
And I think they're looking for a certain amount of positive cash flow, a certain number of quarters of positive cash flow, so that they can say, okay, this is something that you seem to have the ability to repay the loan. So some of those criteria become important in the traditional banking world.
Exactly.
But for Working Solutions, there is a little bit more leeway in that regard. And why is that?
Because first of all, we believe in these small businesses. We believe in their plan to grow. And so we help them by giving them access to capital, but also with education. So as they go through the life of their loan and they grow, they can get the proper education, understand financial management, understand a new marketing plan. And then what our goal is actually to graduate them into a traditional line of credit as their business grows.
Oh, great.
So that's what we're doing, is we're sort of schooling them with their first business loan when they aren't able to get it through a bank.
Okay. And the amounts of these loans tend, as you said, to be smaller than what a lot of banks would be looking at. So let's talk about historically for Working Solutions, because this is a new program you guys have that I was very excited about, which is what we're going to talk mostly about today. But let's go back and look at traditionally, when you look at the kind of size of loans that might be applicable through a nonprofit lender like yourself, what would that be? What kind of dollar volume are you talking about there?
Our microloans run from $5,000 up to $50,000. But there is a break. If you are a new business under 2 years in business, you're eligible for up to $25,000.
Okay.
And then after you've been in business for 2 years, you can be eligible up to $50,000.
Got it.
So that's where the line is.
But there are some criteria that a company would have to an individual would have to meet in order to do this. I think you mentioned that it can be a new business, sort of like needing some seed money or some initial capital, which is great. Some people don't do that, and it can be almost any kind of business. You don't have like it has to be a retailer, it has to be a manufacturer, it has to be a this or you don't do that, do you?
No, in fact, a lot of our businesses fall under the profile of difficult to get funded industries. So because for that reason, it's in the underwriting process in a bank. They will take into consideration what's referred to as the SIC code, and it's the industry code.
Sure.
And
Standard Industrial Classification, I think is what SIC is.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so if it's in a higher risk industry, then that just deducts some points as far as their overall loan package
Right.
looks. So that tends to be our type of client, but we also have very traditional, considered very good risk type companies, such as we have a dental office and professional services such as an architect and things like that.
And it doesn't have to be a brand new business that might come to you for assistance. It could be, they could have been in business for 20 years. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, and we have those as well. And they're just small family-owned businesses.
There you go.
Yeah, so they don't need $500,000 to grow. They're not looking to get into every big box store out there. They just want to grow within their small business. So maybe they need a new refrigerator for their store, or they need a new lunch counter. And that's usually a smaller amount, but they also don't have the revenue base to qualify for a traditional loan.
Right. Your organization had an event not too long ago that I had the privilege of attending. And what was exciting to me is that you had several clients or former clients get up and talk about the opportunity to have worked with TMC Working Solutions and what that did for their organizations. And at least one of them is now a very large company. I mean, this is the guy that does microfiber stuff.
Yes,
I can't remember the name
Marino.
of his
Well,
Right.
yes.
And so what's exciting to me about that is that he started out as the type of industry that nobody wanted to talk to. He had an idea. That's about all he had. He didn't have proof of concept or any of that sort of thing. And so the traditional lenders wouldn't talk to him. But you guys were able to work with him, got him started, and now he, as you said, he graduated to the point where he can have that thing. So for a company, there are companies that don't want to grow beyond a certain point. They're comfortable with what they've got. It's income for the family. They don't want all the extra headaches of having 500 people on the payroll and stuff like that.
Right.
But there are some people that want to go there, and you can help them get there too.
Exactly. Yeah. For example, the person you were speaking of, when he first started, yeah, it wasn't a very sexy industry. It was just selling wool, that is really, it does wonders in cold environments. It wicks and does all these things. So he didn't really have a widget necessarily to produce and then sell, and it was very difficult for him. But he does have big aspirations, and he's hit them all. So, and some of our, like you said, our family-owned businesses, they just want to raise their family and with that business, and maybe pass it to the kids or send their kids to college, whatever.
And so when you look at these kind of businesses, the underwriting criteria, underwriting is the process for, I think most people out there will understand, but I'll just restate it. Underwriting is the process that a lending organization goes through to determine whether or not they will or can offer funds to a particular business, or in some cases an individual if it's somebody's looking for a loan for a car. So are the underwriting criteria somewhat different for your type of organization than it would be for a bank?
Yes, because we're a nonprofit microlender, we do have that flexibility, and to be less, to have bigger parameters, which is why actually a lot of our referrals come from banks, and also a lot of our sponsors and our donors are banks.
Banking organizations.
Right. And because they know we can be more flexible when they can't. They have to follow their credit underwriting parameters. So yeah, we do have more flexibility there.
A lot of people got hurt through the recession and are still feeling the impact of the recession as far as their own personal credit scores go. And that, I know, is one thing that can really derail an opportunity in the traditional banking environment. Do you guys have a little bit more flexibility in that regard as well?
Yeah, definitely. And that's been, I think, one of the greatest, gifts that we can offer, because credit scores have dropped, and, but people have recovered, and, they've recovered their credit and they're back on track, but their credit score is still affected. And banks have to stay within a certain FICO score.
Right.
We don't base anything on a FICO score.
Oh,
in fact,
great.
we've done some approvals where the business owner had what would be considered a very high risk or less than desirable credit score. But what we're looking for is consistency, that they've recovered, that they've balanced their personal budget, and that they've cleaned up, any sort of messes or collection accounts or anything on their credit report.
Great. All right, so I want to ask you another question here before we go into this new program, and that is it's actually two-pronged question. How long has Working Solutions been operating, doing this type of work?
We did our first loan in 2005.
2005.
Yeah,
okay.
but we started before as a workforce project during the Clinton administration, and then it evolved into the microloan.
So you've been doing microloans since about 2005. What's the kind of success rate? One of the hits against virtually any kind of lending is the probability or the possibility that the entity, the people to whom you're lending, will not pay that back. They'll fail or something. I think the statistics regarding new startup businesses are pretty dismal when it comes to success and failure. But what have you guys experienced? Because I think you've got some pretty good statistics in that area, don't you?
Yeah, as far as our repayment rate goes,
Yeah.
our repayment rate is 98%.
98%.
And we're doing what's considered very high-risk loans. But I think that that doesn't have anything to do with us. That speaks to the character of our borrowers and our business owners.
Well, it speaks to your ability to determine who is or is not going to have that level of integrity. Okay?
Right.
Because if you willy-nilly gave it to anybody that came to your door, you'd probably have less of a success rate. But it sounds like you guys get very close to your borrowers to determine who they are, how passionate they are about what they're looking to do. And you help them along the way too. It's not just here, take the money and run. You guys assist them through the growth process. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So after we get very close with them during the application process. A lot of times this is the first time they've ever applied for a true business loan. And that can be pretty daunting. There's tax returns, there's financial statements, there's a business plan and projections, all these things. So we help them with that. They have to do the homework themselves, but we'll help review it and edit it and put it together. So that's first before they even get the loan. And there's a bond that happens during that time because you have to have a lot of trust in the person you're speaking to, especially to share a lot of that information, or to share that you don't know you don't know what you're, I've never done projections. How do I do that? So that bond with one another, that one-on-one relationship really starts at that point. And then it does continue after the loan funds. We have a 5-year business coaching program that offers special workshops that we offer to our borrowers, free legal services and technology services, but there's also a one-on-one business coaching that happens throughout the entire term of the loan.
That's actually extremely important. The work that I do during the day has me, for many years, been in connection with a lot of small business owners. And many times someone will start a business because they have a skill that they developed when they were working for a major corporation. And now they take that skill and they want to convert that into their own business. But because when you were working for the major corporation, you were in this little cocoon of that specific area of expertise, you don't necessarily know what it takes to start and operate a business, and the HR, human resources issues, the legal ramifications of how you structure your business, all the different taxing authorities you have to deal with. Otherwise, you get the hammer dropped on you. You just don't know these things because you've never had to deal with them. And it sounds like you guys are there to help coach these people all the way along the way, which is really very cool.
Yeah, it's inspiring too. It's fun to see, to see them go through that process. And it can be, like I said, it can be very daunting.
Sure.
And I always tell our borrowers, I said, by the time your loan gets to loan committee, you're going to hate me, but trust me, after you get the loan, you're going to understand why.
You're really happy that we went through all that.
Yeah, they do come back
cool.
and they say, gosh, you were asking so many questions and you were, I had to do this and do that. But then, here came 6 months later and they hit a challenge, that they weren't expecting. And they had a plan for it, or they knew where they could go to get an answer.
Great. Well, I want to take us now to talk about this new program, the Step Ahead program that you guys have, because this is a very new level of offering that you're having, and you're doing it in conjunction with Kiva. And Kiva, who the folks in the audience may or may not know of Kiva, but Kiva has been an organization who for many years has been offering very small loans, micro loans, to individuals in third world countries to help them develop enough of a financial base to be able to sustain themselves, to take people out of poverty.
Right.
And there's a new game in town here where you're actually working in conjunction with them to do that for people here in the States. So tell me more about the Step Ahead program.
Well, thank you. We're really excited about it, because we're partnering with Kiva, which is huge, and they essentially started micro-lending, effectively. And the partnership is allowing us to have a very specific loan program with all that paperwork that can be daunting. We don't have to go through that because we're just offering a very small loan, and the goal is to get them throughout the term of that small loan, get them to where they would be eligible for the next level.
And when you say very small, what does very small mean?
5 to 10,000. That's considered very small in the U.S., whereas
Right.
what you were speaking
Right,
of,
yeah.
Kiva,
Yeah.
it was very like by $50
Right.
or $5
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
But here, yes, $5,000, $10,000 is a very small amount of money to get things going for a business. So let's talk about the kind of business that when you and Kiva were looking to put this kind of a thing together, what kind of potential business did you have in mind, or came forward as the kind that could be serviced by this type of lending?
So the type of borrower is somebody who might have an informal business, where, for example, we're going to go out to flea markets and do some outreach there. So that would be considered something that is informal by structure, and or also like street food carts, things
sure.
like that, where people, go on the weekends and try to sell whatever goodie they've made or that they've bought, and they're trying to resell.
Right.
So, and we really want to target the real small businesses that would otherwise have to rely on very high interest rate credit cards, things like that.
Right.
And maybe they're cash-based businesses, so they're not able to get a loan anywhere. And they have limited paperwork. They haven't done some of the processes that are really required.
I see this. There's a guy here in Mountain View that has this hot dog stand. You see when you're going down by one of the local streets, and he's out there, and I got to believe, that's his business. And you see a lot of these kind of guys. You talk about food cart guys. I know that's a big thing in New York. If you've ever been to New York, and you see them all along the streets there. But
yeah.
So we have somebody that has what you were calling like an informal business. It's something that they've done some of. Maybe they've been doing it on the weekends to make a few extra dollars, but there's a possibility that it could turn into something larger, and they just need a little bit of assistance.
Right.
So the Kiva kind of formula or format for things, because I've had the privilege of working through them and putting some donations in through Kiva. They'll have a listing of somebody in some location that was trying to accomplish a specific objective, and they're looking for X amount of dollars. And as an individual, I could say, okay, well, I'll lend $25 or $100 or whatever to this person. And is that a similar kind of a thing that's going to be going on here with this program?
Exactly. Right. So at first I want to back up as far as the type of businesses. We also are going to lend to established formal businesses as well. So it's not just those informal ones. So I didn't explain that correctly, and maybe they don't need $25,000. Like we were saying earlier, maybe they just need a new refrigerator and it's $6,000 or $7,000.
Right.
So
they've had a situation, something happened. I was actually talking to someone not too long ago that has a string of yogurt shops, and they were going to open up a new one, and they needed X amount of dollars to get a new piece of equipment. It wasn't a whole heck of a lot of money, but they didn't have the cash. And they weren't bankable because they'd only been in business for a certain period of time.
Right.
So that sounds like, again, the kind of circumstance that might be appropriate.
Exactly. So they could have been in business 20 years and had a little corner store, but it's a cash-based business and stuff, so they won't be bankable, even though they've been in business 20 years.
Right.
And they just need a new refrigerator. It's $5,000. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you did that, because that's a significant adjunct to this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. But back to the sort of investing in the clients, yes, that's a very big part of it. So the benchmark is $25. So what we do is we bring these clients in and we go through our underwriting process, and when we think they're eligible for the loan, they are funded by us, and then they go up on the Kiva website, just as any other Kiva borrower would go. And their story is told, and they have a picture, and we hope to start doing videos sometime
very cool.
soon. And it really allows, so then I could go on the Kiva website and just see what my personal, put in what my personal interest is, and those types of businesses will come up, and I'll read their story. And one, just like you were saying, what you did, one just might really, speak to me,
Yeah.
and I can invest, or lend essentially $25. And I use the word invest because oftentimes when people that do this lending, when their loan is repaid, they just put it right back into another business. So
Right.
they're just really, they're investing emotionally into
Right.
these businesses. And that makes it really fun. We've had 2 that have funded already.
And the program's only been initiated since, it's like 4 weeks ago, right?
It was about a month ago,
About a month
yes,
ago.
that we did our full launch. We did a soft launch a couple of months prior in April, but we did the full complete launch, just about a month ago at our annual breakfast
Oh,
where you
right,
were. And
yes.
thank you actually for supporting us that day. That was very kind and
Glad
generous.
to be there.
So yeah, you can lend as little as $25 on the Kiva website, or as much as you want. And we've had people lending to our borrowers from Sweden, from Italy, from
Wow.
really interesting places across the globe, and
See, now
something
that's
spoke to
interesting
them.
because that's one of the things I hadn't actually considered, which is huge here for the small companies that are going through this process, and that is that they can get help from anywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of crowdfunding, kind of like is what it is, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
But they're able to get some assistance from anywhere on the planet, that's phenomenal. That's really great.
Yeah.
So, the process that someone would go through if they were curious about or interested in or looking for an opportunity like this, what would they do? How would they communicate? What should they do in order to say, look, this looks like something I need to know about?
Well, if you go to our website, it's very user-friendly and very easy to go through, and a lot of information is broken down in a very clear and concise way on our website. And it'll walk you through what's needed or how they can go through the process. But also, a lot of our borrowers mostly just pick up the phone and call us.
Yeah.
And we're a small organization ourselves, so we tend to be, we're very hands-on, and you can talk to a person, within 24 hours and start that process. And it usually starts with an eligibility call, and we just talk about.
And how long does that process take, typically? I mean, I know you haven't had that much experience. It's been a month or a couple of months. But in general, is this a less lengthy and arduous process than the traditional lending method?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Because of the dollar amount and because of the partnership with Kiva, we were able to open up our underwriting parameters even more for this type of loan, $5,000 to $10,000. And so there isn't as much paperwork required. The process is quicker. It's taking right now about 2 weeks.
It's not bad at all.
Right. So, and we're hoping as we get further, into this and it becomes more familiar and everything, we can even shorten up that time, and hopefully evaluate the program after a year and see if we can open it up even more as far as our credit parameters go.
So now, what geographies can you service? Can you as TMC and with the Kiva program, what geographies can you service?
We serve the 9 Bay Area counties.
9 Bay Area counties. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And what are your objectives for the program?
Well, we want, like I was saying earlier, we want to get to these businesses that definitely otherwise don't have an opportunity. So our objective is to get to these, get through outreach and sharing of information, like here, what we're doing, get to these businesses and start them in their very first business loan. Because this still is a business loan. It's not
Yes.
using a credit card or, a personal credit card, which most of our borrowers and most small businesses, use. So this provides them with business credit.
Which is really good because they're going to need that as they expand and grow and, as you said, hopefully graduate to the next level.
Exactly, right. And they may not want to graduate to the largest level, but if they want another location, or maybe they need to, remodel the inside of their store or something. So that's what our objective is to get them set up on their very first business loan, establish business credit, and throughout the term of that loan, like I was saying earlier, if they're an informal business, we're going to help them get more formalized, start tracking their financial statements and things like that.
So on these type of loans through the Step Ahead program, what is the term? Is it like 2 years, 5 years, 25 years? What is, or is it variable?
For this, the Kiva Step Ahead loan program, it's 3 years.
3 years.
It's set, yeah.
Okay, which is reasonable. I mean, you're talking about $5,000 to $10,000.
Exactly.
Now, is 5,000 the floor? You can't go lower than 5.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
5,000.
for this program, you can't go higher than 10.
Exactly.
There are other opportunities and programs for people who may need 25, 50, 150 or something like that, because as we talked about earlier, Working Solutions has been doing this for a while and has these other programs that are
Right.
relevant.
Right.
Excuse me for a second. I need to. Okay,
Is it
sorry
tickling
about
your
that. Yeah, all of a sudden throat dried up. All right, we only have a couple of minutes left in this show, so I wanted to turn this over to you just to tell us what other things do people need to know about this new program, because I think this is the most exciting thing I've heard about in business lending in 10 years.
Oh, well, thank you. Like I said, we're so excited because we're going to be able to get to a whole new market, and we are focusing on, or not focusing, but we are hopefully targeting this to minority-owned businesses, women, low income, that type of demographic. Mm-hmm. But what I think the best thing to know is that it's an easy process, that it's very open. You can trust us with your information, and hopefully we'll start building some business credit for you so you can in the future get a line of credit, even if it's a small one at a bank, and continue your business that way.
Fantastic. Sandy, thank you so much for coming down to be with us here at Reference Point today. Really appreciate it. This is a very exciting program, and I can't wait to see it grow, because I think what you guys are doing are phenomenal. Folks, ladies and gentlemen out there, I want you to know that if you have any questions about this, Sandy said you can go up to their website, which you've seen their website, www.tmcworkingsolutions.org. So you can go there. If you just want to send an email to info@referencepointtv.com, send it to me. I'll get it to Sandy or someone else at Working Solutions so that they know to answer your question. So Sandy, again, thanks so much for coming down. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited about this, and hopefully we can, your being on this show will help you out in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, appreciate your being there, and we'll see you next time on Reference Point.